I'm proudest of our staff's work on getting the statute passed to get us out of the opt-out communities. And if you saw, as you all probably did, how the legislature operated near the end of the year, it was a miracle, really, that we were able to get it there, to get it through. And I had some staff folks here who literally spent the night up there to make sure nobody got amnesia at an inappropriate time. So I think that was the biggest thing this year, and hopefully the momentum going forward.
I think for me, the last couple of years, we have really elevated the dialogue around transit. Thanks to all of you here in this room. I see so many familiar faces who we've seen in Lansing many, many days, and we've seen at coffee hours throughout the state. We have really made it clear that there is support for public transit here in our state. So thank you for all the work that you have done this last couple of years. This work, thank you, yeah. This work is enduring work. We've made some progress in the legislature despite rather challenging circumstances, at least for the State House here. And I hope to continue trying to make more progress as we look ahead. But I also just want to say, I mean, the work that Wayne County under Executive Evans over these last few years around transit has been tireless and persistent and strategic, and it has really moved the needle when it comes to advancing transit. And we've advanced transit in Oakland County as well, and we've increased the millage in Washtenaw County. We've been doing the work at the local level, and I'm so proud to see that work happening. And we've done some good work in Lansing, but we'll talk here today, but we've got a lot more work to do.
Hey everybody, so good to be back with a group of friends. Hopefully we all consider each other friends, because this is hard work. I'm State Senator Mallory McMorrow, proud to be the Senate Majority Whip, and Rep. Morgan and I and so many others worked tirelessly over the last year to really change the conversation in Lansing where transit is no longer optional. We put a stake in the ground to say that transit is economic development in a big way. And just because we didn't get our efforts across the finish line doesn't mean that's not progress. I think when I came into Lansing back in 2018, talking about public transit was like a cute afterthought. So to get from that place where now the governor is talking about transit as an integral part of infrastructure and economic development, where we put together, legislation that I started in the Senate to reform SOAR, which is our state's largest economic development tool, that then went over to the House, and our House colleagues built on that to put forward a proposal that would have guaranteed $200 million a year for transit, $2 billion over 10 years. And that plan was so well received, again, didn't get across the finish line, but in a hearing, there were 90 cards of support. And just for people to know what that means, stakeholder groups can come to Lansing to hearings and put in cards during testimony in support or opposition of legislation. On a good day in my committee, as the chair of economic development, we may get 3 groups in support of a piece of legislation. So to have this legislation put forward where transit was at the front and center, and to get 90 groups from GM, from automakers, from transit agencies, from economic development associations, sent a very loud message throughout Lansing that this is a conversation that is worth having. It is not one and done. And that is work that we're going to continue forward. And it was because we sat here last year at this panel and said in no uncertain terms that if your legislator doesn't prioritize transit, then they should be voted out of office. And we made a challenge. We put a challenge to all of you to say that is the work of everybody who cares about this issue, to contact your legislators, to let them know that it's important. And that message was heard loud and clear. So I want everybody to know that that progress is huge progress. And it just means that we have momentum to keep building on as we move forward.
And that list was actually well over 100 by the end of the process. So that was huge.
Well, with our success with the vote, this year will be a year where we've got there are 43 communities in Wayne County. 17 of them have been opt-out communities. So the focus will be obviously on the 17. But to sit with all of them and get their input, and let them know we want to develop a plan that works for them, not just one that works for us mentally. And I think the position, the negative position relative to transportation is really dying. It's not transportation so much now. It's other people telling us things that we should already know. Why are we, it's not core anti-transportation as much as I think it was 10 years ago when we first tried to do this. But I think that working with these communities, and my deputy county executive, Assad Turfy, has spent much of the last year sitting with those communities. Maybe not on the transit issue, but on other issues. It's difficult when you got 43 communities to make everyone comfortable that you're interested in their needs and their concerns. And I think they've done a fabulous job, Assad has, meeting with those folks, developing a relationship, and I think that will go a long way to sitting with the folks. Plus, I think they know we're sincere. I mean, the county was in terrible shape when we got there. Everyone knows it's not anymore. It's not our job to make dumb decisions. We don't do that. And while people like to have their independent, we talk about 43 unique communities in Wayne County, we also understand it's a part of a region. And folks have got to get through their mind past the territorial, well, this doesn't really help my little township so much. Yeah, but it helps the county so much. And in helping the county so much, it creates opportunities for everybody and everything. And I think people are starting to see it more, but we've got to do more. It's I hate to lose, number one, and I hate to waste time, number two. And so I think I've got 10 years invested in this thing. It's about time to make something happen and work better. And one of the things I keep telling the communities that need to understand is some of our poorer communities are aging out in terms of the folks that live there. The older folks, it's getting older, and the only thing that will bring young folks there or keep young folks there is their ability to get downtown and to Ann Arbor and stuff without driving. I mean, you can have all of, I was still a grease monkey when it comes to working on cars and stuff, but I mean, it's not about me. It's about the opportunities for people to do what it is that they want to do. And unless transit comes into some of these communities, I don't think they're ever going to be able to get the young people in to help sustain those townships and cities. So I think it's really in their best interest, if they look at it more globally, that this is the time to do it and the right thing to do.
I don't have a short answer to that question, so but I'll give you a short answer. What's next in terms of my radar is I'm going into my second term in the State House. We have term limits that allow us to serve up to 12 years, so I'm not in this for the short run. I'm in this for the long haul. I've been working on transit for many years, back to when I was chair of the Washington County Commission, working with Executive Evans and other folks in Southeast Michigan to try and work on transit. So there are a whole lot of things that we need to keep focused on. One, being in protection mode for a little bit here. We are going into very different times this next couple of years in terms of leadership in Michigan and in Washington, D.C. And so we need to protect the funding that we have currently, particularly for local bus operating, for capital, for the matches from the state and the federal government where funds come in. We've got to make sure we're protecting that. And we've got to build out longer-term planning. I want to see a plan from every gubernatorial candidate as to what they're going to do around like a transformational plan around public transit. I think we need to demand every candidate that wants our vote for governor, for U.S. Senate, for mayor of Detroit, whatever the heck they're running for, needs to have a plan for transit, and particularly governor. I think as we've looked at things over the last couple of years, it's been very clear to me that it's not just a Ann Arbor or Detroit or Southeast Michigan issue around transit. It is a statewide challenge that we have to improve options for folks to be able to get to where they need to go. And it has to come from the governor's office, right, all the way down to us at the state house and state senate, to our county executives and our county officials, our city folks. We need a statewide plan for public transit, and it needs to be real and robust and transformational, and the political power needs to be put behind it to get that passed and make it actually happen. So that's where I'm at. And I would say the same for our U.S. Senate candidates. People need to ask all these folks who, as they look at running, what is your plan to invest in transit here in Michigan? Do you have a plan? What is your record? What have you done previously? And how are you going to bring resources into our state from the federal government to support transit throughout our state, within our state, and connecting us to the region and to the rest of the country? That has to be on everyone's radar as they look to us. So I'll stop there, but I will just say, the last piece I'll say is funding is critical, as well as policy. We have some ideas we've been working on the last couple of years that I've certainly been working on, and Senator McMorrow has been a great partner in that, to try and invest in transit here in Michigan. We put together that plan that was a $2 billion investment in public transit over the next 10 years. That was paired with economic development, housing, some other things. I thought that was a phenomenal plan, and it was a good deal for everybody interested in those topics. But we're going to keep working. Whenever I get frustrated something hasn't moved, I just go back and work harder the next time. So that's what I'm going to do, is just keep working harder on this and seeing what else we can get done. But we've got to put forward some real funding proposals and put people on the spot and see if they're willing to put their name behind a meaningful investment in transit throughout our state.
So Rep. Morgan pointed out something that is just reality for all of us. We are in Lansing in divided government. So now Democrats and Republicans have to work together to get anything done. In an ideal world, we would have worked together already, but that is not the political era that we live in. And then on the federal level, I mean, we saw today just how fragile funding streams can be, when I know our office and many others were being lit up with phone calls and emails and messages about funding freezes. And some will try to paint that as, you know, the federal government is holding back because they want to be smarter fiscally. We have to remember those are our tax dollars. So when they decide to freeze federal dollars coming back into our state, that is our money that we have given to the federal government in our tax dollars that they are refusing to bring back into our state for the things that we need. So I think, you know, I'm very candid on this stage. I'm a Democrat. I think Democrats have to get much more aggressive about making that plain to residents that this isn't some handout. This is not money that the federal government is just giving us from nowhere. It's our money, and we deserve to get it back to fund the things that we need. Now, in my role in chairing the Economic Development Committee, I think we went a long way last term to making the case that transit is economic development. And I know many of you either tweeted at me or sent me notes or asked, you know, why aren't you just running this on its own? Why is this tied to billions of dollars in, let's be honest, corporate tax dollars? That's negotiating. Some people wanted that. We wanted transit. And that was kind of the bargain that we made to move that forward. But what we saw through that process was that there is interest and passion around transit. So I'm in conversation with Senator Erica Geis, who chairs the Transportation Committee, about what if we have a joint committee between transportation and economic development? What if we bring in transit operators from other states who have leveraged transit as economic development to tell their success story about how they have recruited more young people to move to and stay in their cities and states? Because at the end of the day, you know, we are getting questions all the time about why is car insurance so expensive? And there's a lot of reasons why car insurance is so expensive, but part of the reason is that in our region, in our state, there's no competition. You must have a car. You must have insurance to be able to fully participate in our economy. And until we have a robust public transit system, there is nothing to force insurance companies to bring those rates down because they know you need it. So there's a lot of work ahead, but in my mind, it's how do we use the positions that we still hold, especially in the Senate, to continue to move that conversation forward and put the pressure on those who would oppose transit funding to have to make the case to their residents why their tax dollars don't matter. Obviously, you're all here because you care deeply about transit. And it can be really frustrating. I've heard from people who say, I have emailed my legislator and I emailed them this one time and I never heard back and nothing moved. The squeaky wheel gets what they want. It's true. True, TRU. So True has done incredible work, and I think lean on them to understand the legislative calendar and the process, because we flux throughout the year. We're going to be heading into the budget process. The governor will present her budget proposal to the legislature. Rep. Morgan and I both serve on the appropriations committees in the House and the Senate. Then the legislature will start crafting its budget in response. So that is the time to really start to make asks about funding. Whereas the fall may be a better time to ask about policy. And you may not have to know all that, but True does. So sign up and make sure that you are reaching out to your legislator, as Rep. Morgan said, consistently. Get to know them as people. They want to know you, I promise. It may not sound like politicians always do, but they do. And encourage one or two more people that you know who may not be a part of the group, because critical mass is what changes people's minds in the legislature. When I've seen really successful advocacy, it is when every single member of the Senate has heard from people in their districts about an issue at the same time. All of a sudden there's critical mass, and that's what we're talking about in our caucus rooms, and that is where the conversation happens. That takes coordination on the outside, and when I think of good examples of seeing this in action, I can think of no better group than Moms Demand Action, who advocates on gun violence prevention. They have built up over the last decade into a group that they're all branded. They come to events in matching red shirts that say Moms Demand Action. They usually bring cookies. They come in a large group, but it's kill 'em with kindness. And they keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up to the point where if you're in elected office, you think whether or not you care about that issue, and gun violence prevention is personally a deep issue of mine, but you realize I can't ignore this anymore because they're gonna keep showing up and they care about this issue. Last thing I'll say is that when you do reach out to your legislators, I know it's easy sometimes to click an Action Network button and send a form. And this is not a knock, every organization does it, right? It's put in your address and send out a form, here's an email. We tally those in our office, we do, and we track them. But nothing is more powerful than your personal story, which takes a little bit longer. It means sending a direct email or leaving a voicemail. But hearing the story, you know, if Exec Evans were to reach out to me and say, it would take me walking 6 miles to get to my nearest bus stop, that is a story that moves me a lot more than, you know, when we go through my meetings and I got 37 emails that all matched and said something, but they all said the exact same thing. So take a little bit of time, follow Megan, sign up for the emails, get one more person in your life, encourage them to do the same, because we know there are so many people throughout this state who are not served well enough by transit, who just need to have their voice heard so that their legislators care enough to act.